So for this collaborative challenge, we've been looking at Dungeons and Dragons data, so specifically from the Critical Role podcast. So we have details about each of the episodes. So if I click on the view step here, then we can see that we have, I think it's about 114 episodes. As you can see, when we're working with Tableau Prep, sorry, 115 episodes. It takes a little bit longer to load, not from this data set in particular, it's more from the dialogue, because that's got quite a few rows to it. So we just need to wait a little bit longer for that profile pane to materialize. Then we can see our 115 episodes. But we don't actually want all this information that we have here. All we're interested in is the episode, the runtime in sects, and we also want, no, I think those are the only two fields that we want actually. So we just want to know how long each episode is running for. The reason that we want that is so that we can work out for the last line of dialogue, how long is that last line of dialogue, and this will give us a kind of upper bound of when the episode ends. So we just keep the episode and the time in secs, so we rename it from runtime in secs to just time in secs, so that when we do our union, it just automatically merges with the correct field. So there we go, we can see our episode and time in secs just comes through nice and easily there. And if we just look at our dialogue, because we haven't actually looked at that input, then as I was saying, quite a lot of rows here, so over 200,000 rows that we're working with. We could have done some sampling in our input step to make this run a bit more quickly, but we're working with this whole data set just to get a feel for working with a bigger data set, because that's not something we often do for Preppin data. We usually choose a sort of smaller data set to work with, so this gives some kind of inclination as to working with a large number of rows from an Excel file. Okay, so we union those together, and our next step that we want to do in order to work out those durations, we basically want, so let's just see, for example, here, if we look at, let's start with episode 1, for example. We've got the time in secs being 0, and then the next line of dialogue comes at 69 seconds. And so we basically want the 69 seconds to be on the line above as well, so that we can do our duration calculation, because we don't have the ability to look across multiple rows in Tableau Prep at the moment. So in order to do that, we're doing this order step. So this is a rank calculation. We're doing a dense rank. I found that worked better than doing a normal ordinary rank, because of course if we had, say, lots of people talking at the same time, then if we just were ranking it normally, then the following line might be, say, it might go like 1 2 2 2 2 and then 5. I think that's right, how many I've just said there. And that obviously, then if we added 1 to that, it wouldn't take us to the following line. We might get a 3 and then we don't have a 3 to join to. So making sure it's a dense rank, make sure that we keep all of our rows when we are going to do this join in a minute. Okay, so if we go to our next line step, this is just literally our next line is going to be the order minus 1. So if you think about it, where we have our episode 1 here, then we can see that this order 2 value is assigned to this second line of dialogue. So then, therefore, if we minus 1, that makes it a 1. So when we join, we would get this 69 going up to the previous row. So that's what we're aiming to do here. So if I minus 1 there, I've just taken out a lot of the fields there. So we've just got the episode, the time in secs, and our next line field, so that when we do that join, we do our episode to our order equals next line. And now we have, if I go to this duration step and click on episode 1, then let's go find it. So I have my order 1, my next line being 1, that time in secs minus 1 is 69. My initial one is 0, so therefore if I do this value minus this value, I get to 69. So that's our calculation that we have here. I've wrapped the first one in a ZN just in case any of them were coming through as nulls. I think that was from a previous way that I was trying to solve this problem. I don't think we have any nulls in our time in secs minus 1. No, we don't. So that's all good. So now we've worked out our duration, which is great. we move on to our next step, which is splitting up those characters. So where our names might have a comma here, so Ashley, comma Laura, where two people may have spoken at once, we just want to split those out and then pivot that. So the way that I did that, so if I look at the name field, sorry, here, go to the three dots menu, I found that I did have to do a custom split on the comma and split off all. Okay, so if I hit split, then I get these 4 new fields come through. So if you can see there, we've got our name split 1, we're up to name split 4. And you'll notice in the challenge, Will was mentioning about making sure that you trim the white space, but something clever about that automatic split that we just did, or that custom split, is that it always wraps it in a trim for you. You don't even have to make sure that you've done that. So automatically generated by Tableau Prep has a trim around it, so all of our white space gets trimmed for us. So we'll do that pivot. So we're doing a wildcard pivot there where we search for the split so that it brings together all of those split fields into one field. You can see that we get this name split here, and we've got rid of the pivot 1 names field there. We'll want to filter out all these blanks where basically there weren't multiple names to deal with in that dialogue. So we filter those out. We do a little bit of renaming, and then we also want to filter out our section. So where we had our gameplay and intros and outros, we just want to keep the gameplay. We remove some of those fields that we're not interested in. And our final step is to do a little bit of duplication. So basically deduplication, sorry. So we're just grouping on each of the fields that remains, each of those 7 fields that we want to remain in our output, so that we can see if there's any duplication. So before I do that step, there's about, you can see there's about 276,000. When we deduplicate, there's more like 270,000. And then that's how we reach our output. So thanks very much for the collaboration. Thanks very much for the challenge, Will. And thanks very much for watching too.